The building shook at 0300 hours. It wasn't a tremor. It was the sound of concrete cracking like old bones. I woke up with dust in my mouth and the ceiling cracked right over my head. At 65 years old, I've seen a lot of things, but I never imagined my home would turn into a death trap. The firefighters arrived screaming, "Evacuate! Evacuate now!" I ran down the stairs barefoot, grabbing only my purse and a photo of my daughter when she was a little girl. Outside, under the red lights of the police cars, an inspector sealed the entrance with yellow tape. Condemned building, risk of total collapse. 32 years living in that apartment. 32 years of memories buried under rubble. And me, out on the street, with nothing but the clothes on my back. I called Lauren, my only daughter, my own blood, the woman I gave everything to, even when I had nothing left to give. The phone rang 5 times before she answered in an irritated voice. "Mom, it's 4 o'clock in the morning." I explained everything. The collapse, the evacuation, the firefighters, the inspector. I told her I only needed to stay with her for a few days, just until I could find something. There was a long silence. Too long. Then I heard Mark, my son-in-law, in the background. "Tell her no. You know how she is. She'll stay forever." Lauren sighed. "Mum, it's just that Mark is right. We have our routine. The kids have their activities. We can't interrupt everything for—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I hung up with my hands shaking. I drove to their house anyway. I had nowhere else to go. I rang the doorbell. Mark opened the door only a crack, blocking the entrance with his body. His face was a mask of annoyance. "Doris, we already talked about this on the phone. This isn't a good time." I begged him. I told him I just needed the sofa. A week. Anything. He shook his head, with that look of superiority he's always had. "Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. You're going to interrupt our routine. The kids are going to lose their structure. And frankly, I don't have room for a parasite who brings nothing but drama and needs." Parasite. The word stabbed into my chest like a rusty knife. I tried to answer, but Lauren appeared behind him. My own daughter. The baby I breastfed. The little girl whose knees I healed 1,000 times. She looked at me with cold, distant eyes, as if I were an annoying stranger. "Mum, I already told you. We can't. Find a shelter or something." And she closed the door. The sound of the lock clicking was the last thing I heard before I was left alone on the porch, under the light of dawn. I walked back to my old car, a 2005 Toyota with a broken bumper and dead air conditioning. I sat in the driver's seat and looked at my hands. Wrinkled hands, sun-spotted, misshapen by decades of hard work. Hands that cleaned other people's houses. Hands that cooked thousands of meals. Hands that cared for children who weren't mine, while my own daughter grew up without me. And now those hands had nothing. No home, no family, no dignity. The crying came in violent waves, sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the lost apartment. I cried for the daughter who rejected me. I cried for the wasted years believing that sacrifice meant something. But what hurt the most was remembering why Lauren hated me so much, because for 30 years I wasn't there for her. Not because I didn't want to be, but because I was busy being a mother to another child, a boy named Scott, the son of my employer, Linda. I was his nanny, his everything. From the moment he was born until he turned 18, I was the one who took care of him, the one who cured his fevers, the one who took him to school, the one who taught him to read, the one who dried his tears when the other kids made fun of him for being chubby and wearing glasses. Linda was always traveling, building her business empire, and I stayed in that huge mansion, raising her son as if he were my own, better than my own. Lauren complained about it 1,000 times. "You're always with that rich kid. You're never with me." She was right. I worked Monday through Saturday, 12 hours a day, sometimes more. I came home exhausted, only to sleep and leave again. Lauren's birthdays, the school plays, the nights she had nightmares. I wasn't there. I was with Scott, reading him stories, making his favorite comfort food, like mac and cheese or Thanksgiving turkey, being the mother Linda couldn't be. And Lauren grew up hating me for it, hating me for choosing a stranger over her, hating me for selling my motherhood to the highest bidder. I couldn't blame her. I hated myself for it too. But I needed the money. Her father abandoned us when she was 3 years old. I was a woman with no education, no family, no options. The job with Linda paid well. Very well. It allowed me to give Lauren a good school, decent clothes, food every day, a life I never had. I thought that would be enough. I thought money would compensate for my absence. I was wrong. Lauren never forgave me. And now, decades later, that resentment was blossoming in her cruel rejection, in that poisonous word. Parasite. I spent 3 days sleeping in my car, parked in different spots so the police wouldn't bother me. I used gas station restrooms to wash my face. I ate what little I could buy with the few dollars I had. Bread, bananas, water. My body ached. My bones cracked. At 65 years old, sleeping in a car seat is torture. But I had no alternative. I called old friends. They all had excuses. "Oh, Doris, what a shame, but we're remodeling right now." "My son just moved back home. There's no room." "Did you try your daughter yet?" "Yes, I tried my daughter. And my daughter called me a parasite." On the 4th day, I saw Lauren's social media post, a photo of her with her kids, smiling perfectly. The caption read, "Family is everything, but real family, not those people who only show up when they need something." Some mothers only know how to be mothers to other people's children. Thank God for showing me what not to be. The comments were worse, her friends applauding. Exactly. Boundaries. How brave to speak your truth. Toxic mothers are the worst. Nobody knew she was talking about me, but I knew. And it hurt more than the rejection at her door. Because it was public. It was permanent. It was her version of the story, where I was the villain and she was the victim. That night, sitting in my car under the flickering streetlight, I took out my phone. I had a contact saved for years, a number I never dared to call. Scott Doctor. I saved it when Linda gave it to me, the day I retired. "Doris, if you ever need anything, anything at all, call my son. He will never forget you." I never called. Because of pride, because of shame, because I didn't want to be that old employee asking for favors. But now I had no pride. I had no shame. I only had desperation. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" The voice was deep, confident, with that professional tone of someone used to making important decisions. For a second, I couldn't speak. Almost 15 years had passed since I last heard that voice. The last time. Scott was 18 and about to leave for college. Now he was a man, a famous cardiovascular surgeon, a millionaire, and I was just the old nanny who changed his diapers. "Hello? Who is this?" he insisted. I swallowed. "Scott, it's me, Doris." The silence on the other end lasted barely a second, but it felt eternal. Then his voice changed completely. It became warm, almost boyish. Doris. My Doris. Oh my goodness. It's been so long. How are you? Where are you? Why did you never call? His enthusiasm broke me. Tears sprung without permission. Scott, forgive me for calling like this suddenly, but I couldn't finish. The crying choked me. Doris, breathe. Take it easy. What happened? Tell me. His voice was so gentle, so worried. I told him everything. The collapsed building, the lost apartment, the call to Lauren, Mark's rejection. The door slammed in my face. The word parasite. The days sleeping in my car. It all came out in a disorganized torrent of pain. Scott listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a brief silence. Then his voice sounded different, harder, with contained anger. Give me your exact location, right now. I gave him the address of the gas station where I was parked. Don't move from there. I'm coming over. Give me 40 minutes. Doris, listen to me closely. You are not spending one more night in that car. Do you hear me? Not one more night. He hung up before I could answer. I stayed staring at the phone, unable to believe what had just happened. Scott was coming. The boy I raised. The boy who called me Mom Doris when his mother wasn't around. The boy I taught to ride a bicycle. The boy who cried in my arms when the other kids made fun of him. That boy was now a powerful man, and he was coming to rescue me. For the first time in days, I felt something like hope, but I also felt fear. What if he had changed? What if the money and fame had transformed him into someone cold? What if he was only coming out of obligation, out of pity? 35 minutes later, I saw the lights. It wasn't a normal car. It was a huge, gleaming black SUV, the kind you only see in movies. Tinted windows, perfect tires. Another identical vehicle followed behind. The SUV parked in front of me, and a man in a dark suit got out of the driver's seat. He opened the back door and Scott stepped out. My Scott. But he wasn't the chubby boy with glasses I remembered. He was a tall, fit man, with perfectly styled hair, and a watch that probably cost more than everything I owned in my life. He wore an immaculate grey suit, a white shirt, and he had that presence that only people accustomed to power have. But when he saw me, his face transformed. His eyes filled with tears. He ran toward me and hugged me as if he were a child again. Doris, my Doris. His voice broke. He squeezed me against his chest, and I felt his heart beating fast. He smelled like expensive cologne and success, but his hug was the same as when he was 5 years old and scared of thunderstorms. We stayed like that, embracing in the middle of the gas station parking lot, while the chauffeur and 2 bodyguards waited respectfully to the side. Forgive me for not calling sooner. My mum told me you had moved, that you wanted your space, that you didn't want us to bother you. I looked for you on social media, but I couldn't find you. I thought you wanted to forget about us. I shook my head, unable to speak. He pulled away slightly and looked into my eyes. His eyes were the same, clear, honest, full of kindness. It doesn't matter. I'm here now. And I swear to God that no one, ever again, is going to treat you like this. He took my arm gently, as if I were made of glass, and guided me toward the SUV. The chauffeur, a man named David, greeted me respectfully. Mrs. Doris, it's an honor. The doctor talks about you all the time. Scott helped me into the back seat. The interior was like another world. Soft leather, screens, perfect air conditioning. There were bottles of mineral water and even a folded blanket. David, take us home, Scott ordered, sitting beside me. Then he turned to me. But first, I need to know something. Where does your daughter live? The one who slammed the door on you. I gave him Lauren's address. I saw something darken in his gaze. Perfect. Let's go there first. I tried to stop him. No, Scott. I don't want to cause trouble. He took my wrinkled hand in his. Doris, you raised a boy who wasn't yours as if he were your own son. You gave me love, patience, dedication. You sacrificed time with your own family for me. And now that family treats you like trash. No, Doris. This is not going to stand. During the drive to Lauren's house, Scott told me about his life. After college, he went to medical school. He specialized in cardiovascular surgery. He opened his own clinic. Now he had 3 clinics in different cities. He operated on celebrities, politicians, business leaders. He charged figures I couldn't even imagine. A complex surgery pays me between $50,000 and $150,000, Doris. And you know what motivates me every time I walk into an operating room. I remember you. When you took care of me when I was sick. How you taught me that taking care of others is the most important thing. You taught me to be a doctor, even if you don't know it. His words made me cry again. This successful man, this millionaire surgeon, was giving credit to me, the uneducated housekeeper. My mum lives in Europe now, he continued. She remarried. She's happy. But she always asks about you. She always says you were the best decision she ever made, that without you, I wouldn't be who I am. I felt strange hearing that. Linda was always good to me. She paid me well. She respected me. But she was never truly present for Scott. I was his constant. I was the one who was there at every stage. And now, decades later, that boy was giving it all back to me, multiplied. And you, Scott, do you have a family? He smiled sadly. Divorced. No kids. My ex-wife said I was married to my job. She was right. But you know what, Doris? My job saves lives. And now it's going to save yours. We arrived at Lauren's neighborhood. It was one of those middle-class housing developments, with identical houses and small front yards. The SUV and the security vehicle caused an immediate stir. Neighbors looked out their windows, some opened their doors. David parked right in front of Lauren's house. Scott got out first and helped me out. The bodyguards positioned themselves discreetly nearby. Ready? Scott asked me. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. We walked up to the door. Scott rang the bell firmly. I heard footsteps inside. Mark's voice grumbling, "Now who the heck is it?" He opened the door, his face annoyed. That expression died instantly when he saw Scott. Tall, elegant, with a presence that demanded respect. Behind him, the gleaming SUV and the bodyguards. Mark blinked, confused. Yes? Scott didn't smile. His voice was ice cold. Good evening. I am Dr. Scott Roman, cardiovascular surgeon, and I came to talk about Doris. Scott pronounced every word with a cutting clarity. Mark looked at him without understanding. Then he saw me standing behind Scott. His face went from confusion to discomfort. Doris, what do you have to do with... Lauren appeared behind him, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. When she saw me, her expression hardened. Mum, we already told you we can't help you. Now you're bringing strangers to our door. Scott took a step forward, not aggressive, but firm. I'm not a stranger. I'm the boy this woman raised for 18 years. The boy she fed, cared for, educated and loved while her own mother was working. The boy who called Doris Mom when he had nightmares. And I just found out that you people let her sleep in a car after her building collapsed. The silence that followed was brutal. Lauren opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Mark tried to regain his composure. Look, sir, you don't understand the family situation. This is not… Scott interrupted him. No, you don't understand. This woman sacrificed time with her own daughter to take care of me. She came home exhausted and still made sure that you, he pointed at Lauren, had food, clothes, and education. She worked until her back was destroyed to give you a better life. And when she needed you the most, you slammed the door in her face. Your husband, he looked at Mark with contempt, called her a parasite. Mark turned pale. I would never. That was taken out of context. Scott took out his phone. I have the recording of that conversation. Doris showed me. Do you want us to play it here, in front of your neighbours? The neighbours, indeed, were watching, some with cell phones in hand, recording, others simply watching the spectacle. An armoured SUV, bodyguards, a millionaire doctor confronting a family. This was better than any soap opera. Lauren finally found her voice. That boy she raised was you. And you know what? While she was raising you, I was alone. She was never at my birthdays. She was never at my graduation. She was never at my wedding. She was always with you, the rich kid. I was her daughter, but you were her priority. Her voice trembled with years of pent-up resentment. Scott looked directly at her. You're right, and that was unfair to you. But do you know why she did it? Because your father abandoned you both. Because she was a woman alone, uneducated, with no options. Because that job paid her enough to give you a decent life. She didn't abandon you for fun. She abandoned you to save you. Lauren shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. That doesn't change that she was never there. That I grew up feeling like second best. That now she shows up needing help after years of choosing someone else over me. Scott sighed. When he spoke again, his voice was softer but no less firm. I understand your pain. I really do. But pain does not justify cruelty. She lost her home. She's living in a car. She's 65 years old. And instead of helping her, you humiliated her publicly on social media. I saw your post. Some mothers only know how to be mothers to other people's children. Coward. If you had something to say to her, you say it to her, not to the world. Lauren turned red. I didn't. That wasn't… Scott raised his hand. Save your excuses. I didn't come here to judge your relationship with your mother. I came to make sure you know something very clearly. Doris no longer needs anything from you. Never again. I will take care of her. She will have a better home than this one. She will have financial security. She will have dignity. Everything you denied her. Mark tried to regain some authority. Listen, you can't just come here. Scott turned to him with a look that silenced him instantly. I can't what? I can't defend the woman who was more of a mother to me than anyone, the woman who taught me to have compassion, something that clearly no one taught you. You called a woman a parasite who worked her whole life, who never asked for anything until she had no choice. And when she finally asked for help, you spat in her face. Scott's voice rose in volume. The neighbours moved closer. Do you want to know who the parasite is here, Mark? I did a little investigating before I came. Part-time job. A 2016 car that your mother-in-law helped you pay for. This house is in Lauren's name, bought with her grandmother's life insurance money. But you have the audacity to call someone else a parasite. Mark turned purple. You don't know anything about my life. You have no right. Scott laughed without humour. I have every right, because unlike you, I value what this woman did for me. and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of people you are." He took out his phone again. "I have 2 million followers on social media. I'm a public figure. If I tell this story, your name, Mark Vega, will be marked forever. Your wife, Lauren, will be known as the daughter who abandoned her mother on the street. Is that what you want?" Lauren took a step forward, panic in her eyes. "No, please don't do that. My business. I have clients. This could—" Scott looked at her coldly. "Exactly, it could ruin your life, the same way you ruined your mother's peace of mind. But you know what? I'm not going to do that. Do you know why? Because Doris taught me to be better than that." He turned to me, his expression softening completely. "Doris, do you want to say anything to your daughter?" I looked at Lauren, my baby, the baby I carried, the little girl I raised between double shifts and endless exhaustion, the woman who became a stranger. I had so many things to say, so much accumulated pain, so much regret. But when I opened my mouth, only one sentence came out. "Lauren, I always loved you, even when I didn't know how to show it, even when I made the wrong choice. But now I understand that I can't force you to love me back. So I free you. Live your life, I'll live mine." Lauren sobbed. "Mom, I didn't mean to. It's just that Mark said—" Scott interrupted her. "It's always Mark's fault, right? You make the choices he wants, but when there are consequences, it's his fault. Grow up, Lauren. Take responsibility for your choices." He took my arm gently. "Let's go, Doris. There's nothing left for you here." As we walked back to the SUV, Lauren shouted, "Mum, wait. We can talk. Maybe there is room." I didn't turn around. Scott opened the car door for me. Before getting in, he turned to Lauren one last time. "Now there's room. How convenient. But guess what? We don't need it anymore. You have a nice life." We got into the vehicle. David started the engine. Through the side mirror, I saw Lauren standing in her yard, crying. Mark trying to pull her into the house. The neighbors murmuring among themselves. And I felt something strange. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt liberation, as if a decades-long weight had finally lifted from my shoulders. Scott squeezed my hand. "You're okay?" I nodded. "Better than I've been in years." He smiled. "Good, because now comes the best part. Let's go home. Your new home." I looked out the window as we left Lauren's neighborhood behind. The lights of the identical houses, the perfectly ordered lives. All the things I longed to give my daughter, and that ultimately meant nothing. Scott spoke again. "Doris, there's something I need you to understand. You are not a burden. You never were. You are the reason I am who I am today. Every surgery I perform, every life I save, carries your imprint. You taught me to care, to be patient, to see people as human beings, not as medical cases. That is priceless." His words broke me in a beautiful way. I cried again, but these tears were different. They weren't tears of pain. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. "Thank you, Scott. Thank you for not forgetting me." He shook his head. "Impossible to forget you. You are a part of me." The rest of the ride was in silence, a comfortable silence. We arrived in a part of the city I had only seen in magazines, tall, modern buildings, with private security. David stopped in front of a glass tower that seemed to touch the sky. "You live here?" I asked, astonished. Scott smiled. "We live here. For now." The elevator was glass. I could see the entire city as we went up, lights sparkling like fallen stars. At 65 years old, I had never been in a place like this. The buildings smelled like money, like success, like a world completely foreign to mine. Scott noticed my nervousness. Relax. This is your home now, too. The elevator stopped on the 22nd floor. The doors opened directly into a private lobby. Scott used a card to open the door to his apartment. When we walked in, I gasped. It was huge. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the illuminated city. Elegant but comfortable furniture. A kitchen that looked like it was pulled from a magazine. Everything in shades of grey, white, and cream. Clean, modern, perfect. I know it's a lot, Scott said, taking off his jacket, but I want you to feel comfortable. This will be your home for as long as you need, or forever, if you want. He led me down a hallway to a guest room. It was larger than the living room of my old apartment. It had a huge bed with sheets that looked like clouds, a private bathroom with a tub and a multi-head shower, an empty closet waiting to be filled. Tomorrow we'll go shopping, Scott explained. Clothes, shoes, everything you need. But for now, rest. There are towels in the bathroom, new toiletries in the drawers. If you need anything, my room is across the hall. Don't hesitate to knock. He left me alone. I sat on the bed and just looked around. 4 days ago, I was sleeping in my car. Today, I was in a luxury apartment. Life could change so fast. I took a long shower. The hot water was perfect. The products smelled like expensive lavender. I put on a robe I found hanging in the bathroom. It was soft as butter. When I came out, there were new athletic clothes on the bed. Grey pants, white shirt, underwear with no tags. Everything in my size. Scott had thought of everything. I got dressed and left the room. I found Scott in the kitchen making tea. He had changed from the suit into casual clothes, jeans and a comfortable shirt. He looked younger that way, more like the boy I remembered. Chamomile or mint? He asked with a smile. Chamomile. We sat in the living room. The windows showed the city asleep. Scott handed me the steaming cup. Doris, we need to talk about your future, and I want you to be completely honest with me. I nodded. He continued. How much money do you have saved? The question embarrassed me. I looked down. $3,200. That's all. My pension is $450 a month. That's not enough to even rent a room. Scott showed no pity, only determination. It's okay. We're going to fix this. But first, I need to know what you want. Do you want to work? Do you want to rest? What makes you happy? I thought about his question. No one had asked me that in decades. What made me happy? I like to cook, I finally said, and take care of plants. I had a small garden on my apartment balcony. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers. It was my escape. Scott smiled. Perfect. Then this is what we're going to do. Tomorrow we open a bank account in your name. I'm putting $50,000 in there. No, listen to me. He raised his hand when I tried to protest. It's a gift, not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. It's the least I can do after everything you did for me. $50,000. It was more money than I had seen in my entire life. Scott, I can't accept. He leaned forward. Yes, you can, and you will. Because I earned that in a week, Doris. 1 week. And for you it means security. It means dignity. It means never having to beg for a place to sleep again. Tears rolled down my cheeks again. I don't know how to thank you. Scott shook his head. You already paid me, with years of your life, with unconditional love, with sacrifice. Now it's my turn. He got up and went to his study. He came back with a folder. Besides the money, I have a proposal. My clinic needs someone to handle the hospitality area, someone who makes patients feel comfortable, who talks to the families, who brings human warmth to a medical environment. You are perfect for that. The salary would be $3,000 a month, flexible hours, no heavy physical work, just being you. $3,000 a month. It was almost 7 times my pension. You're serious? Scott nodded. Completely, think about it. You don't need to answer now. Take your time. That night, I slept in a bed that felt like it was made of clouds. For the first time in weeks. I had no nightmares. I didn't dream of collapsing buildings. I didn't dream of closed doors. I dreamed of gardens, with ripe tomatoes, with orange flowers opening to the sun. I woke up to the smell of coffee. Scott was already up, dressed in workout clothes. Good morning. I have surgery at 10 o'clock. But first we'll go to breakfast and the bank. Ready? I put on the workout clothes he had left for me. In the bathroom mirror, I saw myself differently. I was still an old woman with wrinkles and hands deformed by work. But there was something new in my eyes, something like peace. We went to a fancy restaurant where everyone greeted Scott with respect. Dr. Roman, so good to see you. He ordered for both of us. Eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, natural juice. Food I had only prepared for others, never tasted. As we ate, Scott told me his plans. I'm going to look for an apartment for you, something comfortable, with a balcony for your plants, in a secure building. It will take a few weeks. So in the meantime, you stay with me. But I want you to have your own space, your independence. I tried to protest again, but he was firm. Doris, let me do this. Please. It makes me happy. It makes me feel like I'm repaying even a fraction of what I owe you. After breakfast, we went to the bank. Scott spoke with the manager personally. In less than an hour, I had a new account with $50,000 deposited. They gave me a gold debit card. The manager treated me like I was someone important, because I was with Scott, because money makes you visible. Then we went shopping. Scott took me to stores I had never entered. Elegant but comfortable clothes. Peach, beige, green dresses, soft blouses, pants that fit me well. Comfortable but beautiful shoes, skin care products, makeup. Choose whatever you want, Scott insisted every time I hesitated because of the price. Don't look at the tags. If you like it, we're taking it. We spent more than $5,000. I felt dizzy, guilty, but also excited in a way I hadn't felt in years. Back at the apartment, with all the shopping bags, Scott received a call. His expression changed. He became serious. Are you sure? When did this happen? He hung up and looked at me. It was my private investigator. I asked him to monitor the situation with your daughter. My stomach clenched. What happened? Scott sighed. Lauren's post about you. People in her neighborhood identified her. They started sharing the story. Someone recorded our confrontation last night. The video is going viral on local social media. People are attacking Lauren in the comments. Her home-based bakery business is getting negative reviews. And Mark was suspended from his job. Apparently, someone sent the video to his boss. I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me felt satisfaction, justice, but another part, the maternal part that never dies, felt worry. Is she okay? Scott studied me. You care? After everything she did to you, you still care. It wasn't a question. It was an observation. She's my daughter, I said simply. Scott sensed it. I know. And that compassion is exactly why you are special. But Doris, she needs to face the consequences of her actions. You can't save her from this. He was right. I knew it. But a mother's heart doesn't understand logic. Has she tried to contact me? Scott shook his head. No, but she will. When things get worse, she will. And you need to decide now what you'll do when that moment comes. I sat on the sofa, with all my purchases surrounding me. New clothes, new life, new opportunities. All courtesy of the boy I raised, the boy who turned out to be more of a son than my own daughter. I don't know what I'll do, I admitted. But I do know one thing. I will not beg again. I will not feel less than, and I will not let anyone call me a parasite ever again. Scott smiled. Good. That's the first step. He stood up to leave for his surgery. Before going out, he turned back. Doris, one more thing. I have a charity dinner tonight. Formal event. Lots of doctors, business leaders, important people. I want you to come with me, as my guest of honor. My heart skipped. Me? But I don't know anything about those events. I wouldn't know how to behave. Scott laughed. Doris, you have more class in your pinky finger than all those pretentious people put together. Just be yourself. That's enough. I spent the afternoon getting ready for the charity dinner. Scott hired a stylist who arrived at the apartment with suitcases full of options. Her name was Amanda, and she had that effervescent energy of someone who loves her job. We're going to make you shine, she promised with a smile. She had me try on several dresses. We finally chose a champagne-colored one that reached my ankles. It was elegant, without being ostentatious. The fabric flowed smoothly when I walked. Amanda did my makeup with an expert hand. Nothing exaggerated, just enhancing my features. You have beautiful eyes, she commented as she applied shadow. And your skin has history. That is beautiful. She styled my silver hair into a soft bun. When she finished, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. It was still me, but a version of me I never knew existed. A version that deserved to be in elegant places. Scott emerged from his room in a black tuxedo. He looked like one of those people who appear in magazines. When he saw me, he stopped dead in his tracks. His eyes filled with tears. You look exactly how you should look, like the important woman you always were. He offered me his arm, ready to cause a sensation. I laughed nervously, ready not to make a fool of myself. The dinner was at a 5-star hotel. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, tables decorated with white flowers and candles, people dressed in clothes that probably cost more than a car. I felt like an imposter, but Scott didn't leave my side for a second. We sat at a table near the front. The other guests began to arrive. Scott greeted them with professional familiarity. An older man with a grey beard approached. Scott, my boy, so good to see you. Scott stood up and introduced me. Dr. Rudolph, I want you to meet someone very special. This is Doris, the woman who raised me, my second mother. Dr. Rudolph looked at me with surprise, then with genuine respect. It's an honor, ma'am. Scott speaks of you often. He says you taught him everything important. I didn't know what to answer. I simply smiled. He exaggerates. I just took care of him. Scott squeezed my hand. I'm not exaggerating anything. During dinner, Scott introduced me to dozens of people, famous doctors, business leaders, philanthropists. To each one, he said the same thing. This is Doris, the most important person in my life. And everyone treated me with a deference I had never experienced, as if my value were written on my forehead, simply because Scott declared it. Halfway through the dinner, Scott was called to the stage. He was going to give a speech about the importance of cardiovascular health. He went up with that natural confidence that only people accustomed to public speaking have. He started with statistics, with medical data, but then his tone changed. But I'm not here only to talk about medicine. I'm here to talk about hearts, not the organ, but the human capacity to love and sacrifice. He looked directly toward me. When I was 5 years old, my mother hired a nanny, a woman with no formal education, but with a doctorate in compassion. Her name is Doris, and she is here tonight. The spotlight found me. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. My heart was pounding wildly. Scott continued. Doris worked 12 hours a day. She earned little, but she gave me everything. She taught me to read. She taught me to be kind. She healed me when I was sick. She defended me when other children made fun of me. She made me feel valuable when I didn't believe it. His voice cracked slightly. And a week ago, when her building collapsed and she lost everything, her own family slammed the door in her face. They called her a parasite. They left her to live in a car. At 65 years old. A murmur of indignation ran through the room. But Doris is stronger than that, and I had the honor of being able to give back, even a fraction of what she gave me. Because that is what we should do. Honor those who shaped us, not when it's convenient, but when they need it most. The room erupted in applause. People stood up, everyone looking at me, everyone applauding, and I simply cried. Not from sadness, but from something I had never felt. Validation, recognition, value. After the speech, dozens of people approached our table. They wanted to talk to me. They wanted to know my story. An older lady named Letitia took my hands. I was a housekeeper for 40 years too. I raised 3 kids who weren't mine. None of them ever looked for me again. Seeing this gives me hope. I squeezed her hands back. Our work mattered. Even if no one else sees it, we know the truth. Scott was by my side, smiling proudly. A reporter from a local newspaper approached. Dr. Roman, could I ask you some questions about your speech? Scott looked at me. Only if Doris agrees. I nodded. The reporter took out his recorder. Mrs. Doris, how does it feel to be honored publicly this way? I thought about the question. I feel seen. For the first time in my life, I feel seen. The interview was brief, but the reporter seemed genuinely moved. This story needs to be told, he said before leaving. People need to know that care work has value. When the dinner ended, Scott and I went out onto the hotel balcony. The city stretched out before us like a sea of lights. How do you feel? Scott asked. Overwhelmed, grateful, confused, happy, all at the same time. Scott leaned on the railing. Doris, there's something else I want to give you, but I need your permission first. I looked at him curiously. What is it? He took a deep breath. I want to establish a fund in your name, the Doris Fund for Domestic Workers. It would help women in situations like yours, women who dedicated their lives to caring for others and now need help, scholarships for education, emergency assistance, legal support, all in your name. The magnitude of what he was proposing left me speechless. Why would you do that? Scott looked at me with those sincere eyes. Because your story shouldn't be unique. Because there are thousands of women like you who deserve dignity. And because I want your legacy to be greater than the pain you suffered. I couldn't speak. I could only nod. Scott hugged me. Then it's settled. I'll start the paperwork tomorrow. We stayed on the balcony for a little while longer, in silence, just existing in that perfect moment. Back at the apartment, I checked my phone. I had 17 missed calls from Lauren, 8 text messages, all urgent, all desperate. Mum, please answer. Mum, I need to talk to you. Mum, everything is falling apart. Mum, forgive me. I showed the phone to Scott. He didn't say anything. He just waited for my decision. I'm not going to answer, I finally said. Not yet. I need time for myself, to heal, to figure out who I am when I'm not taking care of someone else. Scott nodded with approval. Wise decision. That night, in my guest room that now felt like my room, I sat on the bed with my day's purchases, new clothes, new shoes, beauty products, tangible symbols of a new life. But what I had truly gained was not material, it was something deeper. It was the understanding that my value did not depend on how much I gave. It did not depend on being needed. It did not depend on sacrificing myself until I disappeared. My value existed simply because I existed. And that truth, after 65 years, I finally understood. I fell asleep that night, thinking about the fund that would bear my name, about the women it would help, about how my pain would be transformed into purpose. And for the first time in decades, I felt that my life had meaning beyond serving others. It had meaning for myself. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone vibrating. More calls from Lauren, but there was also a message from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo. Lauren and Mark in front of their house. There was red paint on the door. Cruel words. Elder abusers. Bad daughter. The message said, Mum, this is what's happening. People are attacking us. Please say something. Please help us. I looked at the photo for a long time. Part of me felt pity, but another part, the part that was learning to protect itself, felt something different. Justice. I showed the message to Scott during breakfast. He studied the photo without emotion. What do you want to do? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to help her. She's my daughter. But another part remembers how she slammed the door on me, how Mark called me a parasite, how they left me to sleep in a car without a second thought. Scott poured coffee into my cup. Doris, let me tell you something I learned in medicine. You cannot save someone who is drowning if they are dragging you down with them. First, you have to secure your own survival. Then, if you want, and you can, you help. His words made sense. So I shouldn't answer. Scott shrugged. I don't make those decisions for you. But I will tell you this. If you decide to help her, do it from a position of strength, not of need. Not because you are her mother and feel obligated, but because you, from your new life, choose to extend mercy. There is a big difference. I decided not to answer yet. Instead, Scott and I went out to look for apartments. We visited 5 options. All were beautiful, but none felt quite right until we got to the last one. It was an apartment on the 12th floor of a modern building. 2 bedrooms, spacious balcony overlooking a park, large kitchen with an island, natural light pouring in everywhere. And best of all, the balcony already had structures for planters. You can have a full garden here, Scott said. Tomatoes, herbs, all the flowers you want. I walked through the empty space, imagining my things there. My plants growing, the morning sun warming the living room, a quiet life that was mine. This is it, I said. This is my home. Scott smiled. Then it's yours. We'll sign the contract this week. Back in the car, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Lauren. It was a number with an international code. I hesitated before answering. Hello? An elegant female voice with a European accent replied, "Doris, this is Linda, Scott's mother." My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't spoken to Linda in almost 15 years. "Mrs. Linda," I said automatically, reverting to that employee tone I used with her. "No, no, no," Linda interrupted. "I'm not your boss anymore. I'm your friend. Scott told me everything. About your building, about your daughter. I'm devastated, Doris, and so proud of my son for doing the right thing." Her voice cracked. "I should have been more too. When you retired, I should have made sure you were okay. Forgive me." I didn't know what to say. Linda had always been fair to me, but never close. Our relationship was professional, respectful, but distant. "You have nothing to forgive, Mom. You always treated me well." Linda sighed. "I treated you like an employee, but I should have treated you like family because that's what you were. You raised my son when I was too busy building my company. You gave him what I couldn't give him: time, attention, unconditional love, and I never thanked you enough." Tears streamed down my cheeks. Raising Scott was an honor. He was a wonderful boy. Linda laughed through her tears. "He was, and he became a wonderful man thanks to you. Doris, Scott told me you are going to create a fund in your name. I want to contribute. I'm going to donate $100,000, and I want to be part of the board of directors. This project is important." $100,000. I couldn't even imagine that amount. "Mrs. Linda, I don't know what to say," she interrupted. "Say yes, and stop calling me Mom. I'm Linda, your friend." We hung up after talking for a few more minutes. I told Scott about the call. He smiled with satisfaction. "My mum has matured a lot. She realized what matters in life. And you always mattered, Doris, even if we didn't show it correctly." That afternoon, Scott had consultations at his clinic. He invited me to go with him. "I want you to see the place and see if the job I offered you truly interests you." I accepted. The clinic was impressive, modern, clean, with attentive staff. Scott introduced me to everyone. "This is Doris. She will soon be part of the team." They showed me the facilities, the waiting rooms, the consulting rooms, the post-operative recovery area. There was a special room for families waiting during surgeries. It was empty except for a woman about 50 years old, sitting alone, twisting a tissue in her hands. She looked terrified. Scott had other things to attend to, so I stayed there. I approached the woman. "Are you waiting for news about someone?" She looked at me with red eyes. "My husband. Open heart surgery. He's been in there for 4 hours." I sat next to her. "He's in good hands. Dr. Roman is the best." She nodded, but she was still trembling. "I'm scared. What if he doesn't wake up? What if that was the last time I saw him?" I took her hand. "You understand that fear, but you can't live in it. You have to trust. Your husband is fighting. The doctors are fighting. You need to be strong for when he wakes up and needs you." We talked for almost an hour. I told her stories. I distracted her. I made her laugh a little. When the assistant doctor finally came out with good news, the woman hugged me, crying. "Thank you. I don't know who you are, but thank you for being here." Scott observed everything from a distance. Afterwards, he told me, That is exactly what I need here. Someone who humanizes this place, who remembers that we're not dealing with patients, we're dealing with people and scared families." I officially accepted the job. I would start in 2 weeks after moving into my new apartment. Scott was right. I was good at this. I didn't need medical degrees to know how to take care of people. That night we had dinner in the apartment. Scott cooked pasta. We talked about everything and nothing. about his dreams of expanding the clinic, about my plans for the new apartment balcony, about how absurd life was. "A week ago you were sleeping in your car," Scott observed. "Today you have a new apartment, a job, and a charity fund with your name on it. Life can change quickly." "For better or for worse," I added. "Yes," he agreed. "But I think it's finally your turn. For better, period." My phone vibrated again. Lauren. Again. This time I answered. "Hello, Lauren." Her voice sounded desperate. "Mum, finally. Please, I need you to do something. People are attacking us. Someone put our information online. We're receiving threats. Mark lost his job permanently. My business is ruined. Please, you have to say something. You have to tell people that this is a misunderstanding." I took a deep breath. "It wasn't a misunderstanding, Lauren. You slammed the door on me. Mark called me a parasite. Those are facts." She sobbed. I know, and I'm sorry. I was angry. I had old resentments. But we don't deserve this. The kids are scared. Neighbors are yelling at us in the street. This is too much." "And when I was sleeping in my car, it wasn't too much?" I asked calmly. "When I was on the street without a home, it wasn't too much?" Lauren had no answer. "Mum, please. I'm your daughter." Those words hurt me. "You are. And I loved you the best I could. But you decided that love wasn't enough. You decided I was a burden, a parasite. Now you have to live with the consequences of your decisions." There was a long silence. "You're not going to help me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't say that. But if I decide to help you, it will be on my terms, not because you demand it, not because you are my daughter and feel entitled, but because I, from my position of strength, choose to do it. Do you understand the difference?" Lauren was breathing raggedly. Yes, I understand." I hung up. Scott was looking at me from across the table. "Are you going to help her?" he asked. "Maybe. Eventually. But first she needs to understand something. She needs to understand that actions have weight, that words hurt, that love is not unconditional when it comes to basic respect." Scott nodded. "Wise decision. Don't rescue her too quickly. Growth comes from discomfort." That night I thought a lot about Lauren, about the baby she was, about the little girl my mother raised while I worked, about the resentful teenager who always blamed me for my absence, about the adult woman who rejected me when I needed her most, and about the desperate mother who was now begging me. The cycle of family pain is complicated. There are no clear villains, just hurt people hurting others. But now I had something I never had before. I had options, I had power, and I had the capacity to choose how to respond. Not from need, but from abundance. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Scott and I signed the apartment contract. We bought furniture. I chose each piece with care. A comfortable cream-colored sofa, a light wood dining table, pictures with tranquil landscapes. Everything I chose reflected the peace I was seeking. Scott insisted on buying the best. "No cheap furniture that breaks in 2 years. I want you to have things that last." We also bought plants, dozens of them, cherry tomatoes, basil, rosemary, lavender, brightly coloured flowers. The nursery employee looked at me strangely as we filled 3 carts. "Going to open a botanical garden?" he joked. "Something like that," I replied with a smile. Moving day arrived. I had no belongings to bring from my old apartment. Everything had been lost in the collapse. So this apartment was filled only with new things, a completely new life, without the weight of the past. Scott helped me organize the plants on the balcony. We got our hands dirty, planting each one carefully. He looked happy. relaxed. "I don't remember the last time I did something like this," he commented, wiping the dirt from his hands. "I'm always in the hospital or in meetings. This is therapeutic." We worked all afternoon. When we finished, the balcony looked beautiful, green and alive, full of promises of growth. That night, Scott went to his apartment and I stayed alone in mine for the first time. The silence was different. It wasn't the terrifying silence of being abandoned. It was the peaceful silence of being home. I made tea. I sat on my new balcony. I watched the city lights. And I cried. But this time, it was tears of gratitude. At 65 years old, I finally had a home that was truly mine. The next day, my training at the clinic began. Scott introduced me to the medical staff. Doris will be our new family hospitality coordinator. She will be in charge of emotionally supporting families during medical procedures. Her office will be next to the surgical waiting area. They gave me a uniform. It wasn't a nurse's uniform. It was comfortable professional attire. Sand-colored pants and a white blouse with the clinic logo. A badge with my name, Doris Marquez, hospitality coordinator. The first family I attended was waiting while their 80-year-old father was operated on. 3 adult children, all nervous, all obsessively checking their phones. I introduced myself. I offered them coffee. I explained the process. I gave them updates every hour, even if there was no new news, just so they knew they weren't forgotten. One of the sons, a man in his 40s named Joseph, thanked me with tears in his eyes. "My dad has been in 5 different hospitals. No one ever took the time to explain what was going on. You are the first person who treats us like humans, not like nuisances." That comment reminded me why this job was important. During my second week at the clinic, an article about me appeared in the local newspaper. The reporter from the charity dinner had written my story. From housekeeper to inspiration, the story of Doris Marquez. The article told everything. My life caring for Scott. My daughter's rejection. Scott's intervention. The fund that would bear my name. The response was overwhelming. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with unknown numbers, media wanting interviews, organizations wanting to collaborate with the fund. And most surprisingly, dozens of women like me, housekeepers, nannies, caregivers, all sharing their stories. A woman named Amanda wrote me a long message. "I worked 30 years for one family. I raised their 3 children. When I retired, they gave me a party and $500. I never heard from them again. Seeing your story made me cry, because it made me feel that my work mattered, even if they forgot it." I read dozens of similar messages, stories of silent sacrifice, of unrequited love, of invisible work. And I understood that my story was not just mine, it was the story of thousands of women. The Doris Fund became official 3 weeks after I moved into my apartment. Scott organized a press conference. Linda flew in from Europe to be present. Media from across the region attended. Scott spoke first. "This fund honors the women who build societies from the shadows, the ones who care for our children, the ones who keep our homes, the ones who sacrifice everything for families that often forget them." Linda spoke next. "I was one of those people who forgot, who took Doris's love and dedication for granted. This fund is my way of compensating for that blindness, and I hope it inspires others to honor the people who shaped them." Then it was my turn to speak. I was terrified. I had never spoken in front of cameras. But Scott squeezed my hand and gave me courage. "My name is Doris Marquez. I am 65 years old. I worked as a housekeeper and nanny for 40 years. I cleaned houses, I cooked meals, I raised children, and when I could no longer work, almost no one remembered me. But one person did. And that one person changed my life. My voice trembled, but I continued. This fund is not for me. It is for the thousands of women like me, the ones who give everything and receive little, the ones who deserve dignity in their old age, the ones who built their lives caring for ours. If my story serves for anything, I hope it is to remind us that we must honor those who honored us with their service. The room erupted in applause, the cameras flashed, and I, an old housekeeper with no formal education, was changing conversations. The fund began receiving donations immediately, not just from wealthy people, also from ordinary people giving $10, $20, $50. Each donation came with a message. In honor of Guadalupe, who raised me, for Mercedes, who cared for my grandmother, for Josefina, who was never forgotten. Each name represented a story, an invisible woman finally being seen. One afternoon, while organizing documents in my clinic office, I received an unexpected visit. It was Lauren. She looked terrible, swollen eyes, wrinkled clothes, thinner. I stood up immediately. "What are you doing here?" She looked around nervously. "I saw the article. I saw the news. Everyone is talking about you. Mum, you're famous." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the absurdity of her observation. "I didn't come for fame, Lauren. I came because I had no other option. You made sure of that." She flinched as if I had hit her. "I know. And I'm sorry. Mum, I'm so sorry for everything. Mark and I are in therapy. We realized a lot of things. About how we treated you. About how we let old resentments dictate our actions." She sat down without being invited. "My business is destroyed. Mark is unemployed. We lost friends. People hate us. And we deserve every consequence. But Mum, the kids, your grandchildren, they don't deserve to suffer for our mistakes. They ask about you. They saw your photo in the paper and asked why their grandmother never comes to visit them." That hurt me. My grandchildren. 2 children I barely knew because Lauren always made excuses not to visit me. "I wasn't welcome in your house, remember?" Lauren nodded miserably. "I know, but things have changed. I have changed. This experience broke me, Mum. It forced me to see who I became. And I don't like that person." She wiped her tears. "I didn't come to ask for money, or to ask you to fix our reputation. I came to ask for your forgiveness. Truly, without conditions. You deserve to hear it. I treated you horribly, and I have no excuse. My childhood pain doesn't justify my adult cruelty." I looked at her for a long time. This broken woman in front of me was my daughter, the baby I birthed, but she was also the woman who called me a parasite. Both truths existed simultaneously. "I accept your apology," I finally said. "But that doesn't mean everything is okay. I need time, Lauren. I need to heal." She nodded. "I understand. Just, could I see you sometimes? Maybe grab coffee? Get to know your new life?" I thought about her request. Maybe, eventually, but on my terms. Lauren got up to leave. At the door, she turned back. "Mum, I'm proud of you. I know I don't have the right to be after everything, but I am. Look at everything you've achieved, everything you are doing. You are incredible." Her words surprised me. "Thank you." When she left, I sat at my desk processing the conversation. Scott appeared minutes later. "I saw your daughter leaving. Are you okay?" I nodded. "I think so. It's weird. Part of me wants to forgive her completely, but another part is still furious." Scott sat down. "Both things can be true. Forgiveness is not a switch. It's a process. And you deserve to take all the time you need. He was right. That night, in my apartment, I watered my plants under the stars. Some were already growing. The tomatoes had small flowers. The herbs smelled beautiful. Everything was growing, including me. 3 months after moving into my apartment, the Doris Fund had raised over $500,000. Scott hired a full team to manage it. We had offices, staff, lawyers, social workers. We had already helped 27 women. Some needed medical assistance, others needed housing. Some wanted education to start new careers. Each case was different, but all the stories were similar. Women who gave everything and were left with nothing. My job at the clinic became my passion. Every family I attended reminded me why this mattered. One day, an older lady named Letitia came in for a consultation. She recognized me immediately. "You're Doris, the one from the paper, the one from the fund." I nodded, smiling. That's right. She hugged me without asking permission. "I worked as a housekeeper for 50 years. No one ever gave us a voice. You are giving us a voice. Thank you." Those moments made everything worthwhile. The pain, the rejection, everything had led to this purpose. Scott and I had dinner together at least twice a week, sometimes at his apartment, sometimes at mine, sometimes at restaurants. Our relationship had evolved. We were no longer nanny and boy. We were chosen family. We were mother and son on the terms that mattered. During one of those dinners, Scott asked me an unexpected question. "Doris, did you ever want to have more children?" The question surprised me. Sometimes, yes, but after my husband abandoned us, I never had the opportunity. All my time went into working, and then it was too late. Scott toyed with his wineglass. "Do you consider me your son? I know I'm not biologically, but—" I interrupted him. "Scott, I consider you more my son than many mothers consider their biological children. I raised you. I loved you. I was there at every important stage. Biology doesn't define family. Love does." His eyes filled with tears. "I want to ask you something. Something important." He took an envelope from his jacket pocket. He opened it and showed me legal documents. "I want you to officially be my mother, legally. I want adult adoption. I want your last name to be part of mine. I want that when people ask about my family, I can proudly say that Doris Marquez is my mother." I couldn't breathe. "Scott, He took my hands. "You gave me my childhood. Let me give you this. Let me honor you this way. Please." I cried uncontrollably. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." We hugged in the middle of the restaurant. People looked at us, but we didn't care. This moment was ours. The legal process took 6 weeks. When it was finally complete, we had a small celebration. Scott, Linda, who had flown in from Europe, and some close friends. The judge who signed the papers said something beautiful. "I've processed many adoptions, but this one is special because it's not about giving a home to a child. It's about honoring someone who has already given so much." Scott was now officially named Scott Roman Marquez, and I was legally his mother. At 65 years old, I finally had the son I always deserved. Lauren found out about it from the news. She called me, crying. "You adopted that man, but me, your blood daughter, you ignore." I took a deep breath before answering. "Lauren, Scott never slammed a door in my face. He never called me a parasite. He never left me to sleep in a car. He honored me when you humiliated me. That is the difference." She sobbed. "Then I'm not your daughter anymore." Her question broke my heart. "You will always be my daughter. But now I understand that I can love someone and still protect myself from them. I can forgive eventually without forgetting. And I can choose who is close to me based on how they treat me. There was a long silence. "Is there any way to fix this?" she asked in a small voice. "Yes," I replied. "But it requires time. It requires you to show real change, not just words. It requires you to understand that forgiveness is earned, not demanded." Lauren was breathing raggedly. "I'll do whatever it takes." We hung up. Scott found me on the balcony afterwards, watering my plants. "Was that Lauren?" I nodded. "She's hurting." Scott leaned on the railing. "She's facing consequences. There's a difference." He was right. A few weeks later, Lauren began sending me photos of her in therapy, of her doing volunteer work at a homeless shelter, of her reading books about healing family relationships. I didn't reply to every photo, but I saw them. And slowly, very slowly, something in me began to soften. The Doris Fund organized its first annual event, a gala dinner to raise more funds. More than 300 people attended. Business leaders, doctors, politicians. But domestic workers also attended. We invited them for free. We seated them at the best tables. During the event, we invited 5 women to the stage. Women we had helped. One by one they told their stories. Rosa, 62 years old, who received urgently needed hip surgery. Amanda, 58 years old, who was studying to be a nursing technician thanks to a scholarship from the fund. Letitia, 70 years old, who finally had a decent apartment after living in a rented room without windows. Each story brought tears. Each story demonstrated that this fund was changing real lives. When it was my turn to speak, I looked at the audience. I saw Scott in the front row, smiling proudly. I saw Linda next to him. I saw the domestic workers crying. I saw powerful people finally paying attention. "6 months ago, I was sleeping in my car," I began. "Today, I am here in front of you because someone remembered me. Someone valued my work. Someone gave me back the dignity that others took from me." I paused. But not everyone has a Scott in their lives. Not every woman who sacrificed gets rescued by the children they raised. That is why this fund exists. To be that Scott for women who have no one. I pointed to the women on the stage. These women built families. They cleaned homes. They cared for the sick. They raised generations. And when they could no longer work, they were forgotten. That ends now. As long as this fund exists, they will not be alone. As long as we have resources, they will have dignity. As long as we have a voice, their stories will be told. The applause was deafening. People stood up. Donations came in all night. We raised $200,000 additional dollars in a single evening. After the event, as Scott and I walked to the parking lot, we saw a figure waiting. It was Lauren. Next to her, 2 small children. My grandchildren. The boy looked about 7 years old, the girl about 5. They looked at me with curiosity. Lauren spoke in a nervous voice. "I know I shouldn't have come without calling, but the kids saw your photo in the paper again. They've been asking about you. And I thought maybe." Scott looked at me, waiting for my reaction. I looked at my grandchildren. The little girl smiled shyly at me. The boy asked, "Are you our famous grandma?" Something broke inside me, or maybe it repaired. I knelt down to their height. "Yes, I'm your grandma, and I'm so sorry I haven't been around before." The little girl hugged me without hesitation. The boy joined after. And there, in the parking lot, I hugged my grandchildren for the first time in years. Lauren cried in silence. Scott smiled. And I understood something important. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the pain of the past steal the possibility of the future. The following months were a slow process of rebuilding. Lauren and I didn't go back to the way we were, because we never had a true relationship to restore. Instead, we built something new, something based on mutual respect, not obligation. We saw each other once a week for coffee. At first, the conversations were awkward, full of heavy silences and repeated apologies. But little by little, we found common ground. We talked about the kids, about her work. She had started a small home-based business, about my work at the clinic. Mark didn't come to these meetings. Lauren explained that he was working on himself, that he understood he had caused irreparable harm, that he didn't expect my forgiveness but respected my need for space. I appreciated his absence. I wasn't ready to see him. Maybe I never would be. My grandchildren became an unexpected light in my life. I saw them every 2 weeks. I went to their soccer games, to their school plays. I taught them to cook in my apartment. I showed them my balcony garden. The boy, who was named David like Scott's chauffeur, was fascinated with the plants. "Grandma, look, the tomato grew," he'd tell me excitedly every time he came over. The girl, Amanda, was an artist. She painted pictures to decorate my apartment. One showed an older woman surrounded by flowers. "That's you," she explained. "You're beautiful like the flowers." Those children gave me something I didn't know I needed. A second chance to be a grandmother. A chance to be present in the way I couldn't be with Lauren. The Doris Fund kept growing. We had already helped over 100 women. The stories kept coming. Each one reminded me how important this work was. One afternoon, I received a letter from a woman in another state. Her name was Rosa, and she was 72 years old. She wrote, "I worked 50 years for a wealthy family. When I retired, they gave me $1,000 and never called again. I saw your story on the news and cried for hours, because someone finally said out loud what we all feel, that our work mattered, that we deserve to be remembered. Thank you for giving us a voice." I saved that letter in my desk. I would read it when I had difficult days. It reminded me why everything had been worth it. Scott and I became inseparable. We had dinner together. We traveled together to conferences about the fund. We celebrated every achievement together. He was the son I always dreamed of, and I was the mother he deserved. One day he told me something that stayed with me forever. "Doris, you know what the most ironic thing is? Lauren rejected you for taking care of me. But if you hadn't taken care of me, I wouldn't be here to rescue you. All your sacrifice came back multiplied, just not from where you expected." He was right. Life was strange like that. The pain on one side turned into a blessing on the other. Sacrifice transformed into purpose. Humiliation became a platform. Nothing was truly wasted. 1 year after my building collapsed, I organized a small gathering in my apartment. I invited Scott, Linda, who was visiting, Lauren and the kids, and some of the women we had helped with the fund. We cooked together. We laughed. We told stories. At one point, I looked around my living room. Scott was playing with my grandchildren. Linda was talking animatedly with Rosa about her new life. Lauren was helping me in the kitchen, working in silence but present. And the other women, all retired domestic workers, were sharing their experiences. This was my family now. Not perfect, not traditional, but real, based on respect and genuine love. That night, after everyone left, I went out onto my balcony. The plants had grown beautifully. The tomatoes were ripe. The aromatic herbs filled the air. The brightly coloured flowers attracted butterflies. Everything I had planted months ago was now flourishing. Scott came out onto the balcony with me. He had decided to stay the night. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. I smiled. About how fast life can change. A year ago I was lost. Today I have a home, a job, a purpose, a family that chooses me. Scott put his arm around my shoulders. And we have you, which is much more valuable. We stood in silence, looking at the illuminated city. I thought about everything that had happened. The building collapsing. The door slammed in my face. The word parasite. The nights in the car. The moment I dialed Scott's number. His arrival. The confrontation with Lauren. The new apartment. The fund. The adoption. Everything had been necessary. Every pain had a purpose. Every humiliation had a reason. Because it brought me here, to this moment, to this peace, to this life that was finally mine. "You know what I learned?" I told Scott. "I learned that a person's value doesn't depend on who needs them. It depends on who they are when no one is looking. I was good, even when no one noticed, even when I was paid poorly, even when I was forgotten, and that goodness eventually came back to me." Scott squeezed my shoulder. It didn't just come back, it multiplied. He was right. My goodness had returned multiplied by 100, in the form of this son who adopted me, in the form of this fund that helped so many, in the form of this second chance to live with dignity. The next day, I received a message from Lauren. "Mum, thank you for giving me another chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving to you that I've changed." I didn't reply immediately. I let the words sink in. Eventually, I wrote, "Change is not proven with words. It is proven with consistent actions over time. I am watching, and slowly I am healing." She replied with a simple, "That's all I can ask for." And it was true. Forgiveness was not a switch. It was a long road, with small steps, with occasional setbacks. But it was possible if both sides were willing to walk it. 3 months later, the Doris Fund opened its first physical centre, a place where women could come for help, where there were social workers, lawyers, counsellors, resources, all free. Scott and I cut the inaugural ribbon. In front of us were dozens of women, all domestic workers or caregivers, all with stories similar to mine, all finally being seen. "This centre is for you," I said into the microphone, "for every woman who gave everything and felt she received nothing, for every woman who built other people's families while her own fell apart, for every woman who worked until her body broke and then was forgotten. You matter. Your work mattered, and you will never be alone again." The women cried. Some hugged me afterwards. An older lady whispered to me, "Thank you for reminding the world that we exist." That night, in my apartment, I wrote in my journal something I had learned. Justice doesn't always arrive as we expect. Sometimes it arrives late. Sometimes it comes from unexpected sources. But when it arrives, it heals more than just the present. It heals the past, too. I looked at my reflection in the window. A 66-year-old woman looked back at me. Completely silver hair, wrinkles that told stories, hands deformed by decades of work. But bright eyes, straight back, genuine smile. This was me now. Not a victim, not a martyr, not a parasite. Just Doris. A woman who survived, who got up, who turned her pain into purpose, and who finally, after 66 years, learned her own value. The phone rang. It was Scott. "Everything okay? Do you need anything?" I smiled. No, my son, everything is perfect. And I meant it. For the first time in my life, everything was exactly where it should be. I hung up and went out onto the balcony one last time. The stars were shining above. The plants whispered with the breeze. The city pulsed with life below. And I was at peace. Finally home. Finally complete. Finally free. And if someone were to ask me what I would do differently, the answer would be nothing. Because every moment of pain brought me here, to this perfect place, to this beautiful life, to myself. And that, finally, was enough.